Hello, welcome back to Blender Sushi channel. In this video, I'm just gonna do like a quick demonstrations. This is the setup that I did just earlier this morning. It's involving my smartphone. I'm using iPhone at the moment, and then there's an app called AddOSC, and the AddOSC is connected to Blender via an add-on called AddOSC by JP. So currently, if you can see in 3D, maybe I switch to 3D view full. Maybe I'll turn on also the back face culling. So now I have this sphere, and I have the floor, and I have the monkey. And what happening here is I have my iPhones currently like a standing, like in a normal portrait mode, and I'm tilting the phone down, so you can see it's the camera is also tilting down, and now if I tilt the phone to the side, it's also tilting. The camera in Blender is also tilting, following my iPhone. So that's a quick setup that I did just by using the iPhone and the AddOSC and AddOSC add-on. And I did this because I kind of want to simulate the tilt brush. I think some of the VR technology have this app called Tilt Brush. I think it's probably by Google. There are a few apps that's kind of similar, and the apps allows the user wearing the helmet, and then they can do the painting in the 3D. So in the 3D space, I think the artist itself can move forward and slightly backward while doing the painting. Not sure if they can really do the painting in a full 3D. Maybe just a little bit of tilt to the front and tilt to the back, and side by side. I'm kind of simulating that. The iPhone can kind of track 3 different axes, I realize, and if I switch back to compositing, this is what I have, the setup that I currently have in animation nodes. Yeah, so I have the buffer, I have the OSC data coming in through the rotations of my iPhone, and then it has 3 different rotations, and I write it down. There's a tilt one. If you're like holding the phone like standing, and then you tilt to the left and tilt to the right, that's pretty simple. But the one that's standing, kind of the phone's kind of laying down and standing, we either choose the rotation Euler 1, or I think it's a rotation Euler 0 of the phone. This is from the accelerometer of the iPhone, and you can see the effects on the Suzanne here. I'll show it again side by side here, so it's a little bit more clear. I'll have this to view. In this one, I will have the active camera, which is this is exactly what the phone is seeing if my iPhone is inside Blender. So I can put the phone on the floor, so it should be supposed to be balanced, and I can tilt it to the left and tilt it to the right and tilt it to the front and up and down. So that works only in all 3 axes. If I select the camera actually and look at the rotation value, you see the rotation is following my camera, and there's Suzanne. Yeah, so if I really want to rotate around, I can oops, I'll go back to the camera view, and then I'll lock it in Blender, lock the camera. Now I can have control over the the rotations in the z-axis. So there's a lot of things going on at the moment. The 3D view is not so important, but what we are seeing here is if you can imagine, that's what your eyes is seeing. If I'm wearing like this maybe like a Google helmet, whatever VR helmet, I can sort of see it like this. So I'm not really tilting my head, but I'm doing it inside Blender, and I can look up, I can look down. Maybe I'll create a field Suzanne just for clarity. So I'll turn this into a properties panel, and this Suzanne, this is gonna be the red color Suzanne. I'll have another Suzanne down there, and that's gonna be the maybe green color Suzanne. So you can see as I'm tilting my phone down, you can see it from this camera. I can see the Suzanne down there, and I can tilt up and etc. There is this sphere that you might wonder why I'm using this sphere, because it's I can use it if I use like a 360 panorama photo. I can map it to the sphere, but I'm using it as something for grease pencil. As you can see, I'll give a demo real quick. I will make the sphere to be untouchable first, so I cannot select it and it won't render, and then I can still see it. And let's use grease pencil with this, so you can still see what's happening here in the 3D. So it's working. The OSC is working with my iPhone still, so it's all good. And I will paint something with grease pencil. Okay, I turn on continuous drawing, and I also turn on the stroke placement on surface. Let's draw something. Okay, draw, and I'll draw this quick smiley. I'm using the ink at the moment, so I'm drawing this in real time. Oops, let me undo that. As my phone is shaking, so it's give that kind of effects. If we're looking up, can draw another smiley face there with hair. It's interesting because you can see this guy being painted, and I can actually draw something here if I know. Maybe I'll switch back to this guy. I can draw another one. See, it's just like doing painting using the tilt brush, I suppose. I can draw something on the floor like that. That's the Suzanne. So okay, I'm gonna project something, maybe like doing a little bit of graffiti there. I thought, okay, that's pretty fun. Okay, I can draw all kind of stuff like that in kind of like a using the tilt brush app. There is one more thing that I think can be interesting. If we if I use this sphere, I'm using animation nodes, and then I'm gonna use object transform output. I'm gonna select the sphere and the scale. Now the scale will be controlled by we can use floating value, or let's say just a float input. You will see what's really gonna happen soon. So with the float value here, I'll call it a sphere scale, and the advanced nodes show in viewport. Sorry. Now we have more control over the grease pencil, and actually also with the grease pencil we can turn on the coloring in the fill. So that's slightly more interesting, although sometimes it does that and we need to deal with a grease pencil palette and stuff. Let's see, the ink is maybe too thick at the moment. moving my camera using my mouse. So the mouse is only controlling the rotation, that the orbit of the camera. Imagine if I'm that person in that 000, and then I'm moving the camera to the side, and now I will try to draw maybe a star, and it's got projected, and I can make that yellow. I can maybe create a new color. This one can be green. Okay, what was I was trying to demo? Oh, okay, the animation nodes and the sphere scale. The sphere scale is affecting the scale of the sphere. You see, just now the star is not actually a place in the where the sphere is, because the sphere was too small. So I enlarge the sphere now, and I'm gonna draw like maybe like a cloud. 1 second. So back to grease pencil. I'm gonna draw a cloud, and it's got projected into that 3D, and that's cool because we can control that kind of like how far, how close we paint. The problem currently I have is this, I need to keep changing this. I don't have the touch bar MacBook yet, so I cannot use the touch bar, and I cannot use the timeline because the timeline is being used by grease pencil. So remember that we have a lot of control here. Like whatever we paint, it's really on that that keyframe there. It's because grease pencil can have multiple keyframe, and it's based on the timeline and frames. So if I cannot really use the timeline, you see, if I'm switching to another frame and then start painting, start drawing, see, everything is disappear because now I'm in a new frame. And if I switch back in the timeline, of course I can switch to another frame time. So like I said, it's more control doesn't mean more control. Of course you can do more sophisticated stuff, but just be careful. It just makes things a little bit more complex. So now I can maybe paint at the back somewhere here. Just still empty. Gonna draw like a stick figure real quick. So see, the thing with grease pencil, it's each stroke being projected as once we release the stroke. That's something to keep in mind. Probably not some like the behavior you want. The palette is fine, but I can control the color. But the color is it's not per stroke basis. The color is per palette that the stroke is currently using. So that's also another thing. See, of course I can make animation nodes to control this color, but I'm not gonna do that because it's not stroke by stroke basis anyway. So maybe have another palette, and this time I'm just gonna paint something, tilt brush. So that's the name of the app. I've seen some people wearing the Microsoft what do they call it, Microsoft Glass, and then they're using this app. I have not tried it myself. Maybe I should at some point, but the thing is I don't have access to it, or maybe I should go to the Microsoft store at some point. But anyway, I can do it in Blender at home, and I don't need my head to wear the helmet, and I can do this painting, and I can control a lot of things. This is, I think, really cool. Yeah, so just now I was painting on the sphere that's slightly larger. Now I can make the sphere a little bit larger again. Now I have a new canvas that's a little bit further down. So if I continue with the grease pencil and do a little bit more painting, another smiley face, or maybe I'll draw something different, the poop emoji. Yep, poop emoji there. And what else? Maybe I'll also paint the Blender Sushi snail logo. Yep, something like that. It's very simple. It's quite fun too. Maybe if I hang my phone here on my forehead, I can tilt this more easily. Just an idea. It's another spiral thing. So currently, I think the grease pencil is still being enhanced. It's really powerful. I think if there is like a wish listing, I wish that every stroke is not while doing the stroke. I wish that it's also updating. Currently, it's only updating and it's projected when I release grease pencil. So that's a little bit of limitations. And the grease pencil also doesn't render in 360 if we use a cycle renderer. But there is like a few processing that we can do in order to be able to do that. So now if I actually hide this sphere, let me switch to the outliner. And turn off the sphere. And this is the result. So see, that's the painting in 3D using grease pencil, and it's got projected a sphere. If you don't have the OSC, the touch OSC and the smartphone thing, you can still paint just by dragging the camera, you know. Just play around with the animation nodes and the sphere, you know, where the grease pencil is being projected. And even though you don't have the real-time tilt, it's still, I think, kind of neat that you can do this. Okay, so that's a quick demonstration of the tilt brush thing. I can go, if there's like a live noding to explain how I set it up, maybe I can do that later. But I think this is pretty clear, and I made some live noding tutorials on touch OSC and AddOSC as well at some point. So this is something you might want to try yourself. Okay, so there you go. That's Blender Sushi setup on how you kind of simulate the tilt brush and using grease pencil and animation nodes and the OSC data in real time. Okay, hopefully you enjoyed this. I'll see you in the next video. You can leave comments down below and then subscribe to the channel for more